dulu. Let me arrange my papers. Let me take Casey. Am I audible?
Hi, loud and clear.
We cannot ignore the fact that no matter how good of an artist you are, as long as you're a human and as long as you have life experiences, no one, and especially you, cannot be 100% original. Because every type of idea that you have is still a contribution from society, a contribution from other people who may or may not have consented to it. Therefore, when it comes to copyright laws, it is something that should be and is very necessary to be discussed. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon I bid to the attentive panel of judges, the meticulous, the very talented timekeeper, my fellow brethren on the government side, and my worthy opponents on the opposition side. Beginning with a problem statement. The main problem in status quo is that copyright laws are way too strict. For example, anything that is sampling other artists or anything that is similar to any other artist can get is possible to get a copyright strike even with the smallest of similarities. Why is this necessarily bad? Because what happens then is creativity what happens or what is something that is fundamental in this debate is that creativity requires inspiration. It is a fact that no one can be creative independently, and we have to rely on life experiences or outs or external factors. Now, moving on to some characterization. What do copyrights look like? Copyright laws are a law that says you cannot copy off of any other people's products or any other people's and other people's products. So some countries have to pay for it, and some countries don't. But what does it actually look like? It looks like only some people can afford it, which means that usually the wealthy people have access to things. We copyright laws, they're becoming stricter by the day because more people are finding different ways to become similar. Therefore, the laws are getting stricter. For example, not only that, but secondly, big artists are paying way more to protect their work. For example, there's no so meaning that even if there's no intention of copying, as long as it still looks like it and these lawyers are paid as much as possible, you still have to pay large fees, or you are still getting or you still look like you're committing a crime. Moving on to the second part of my speech is the principal argument. It is the principle in and of itself is that art should be free to use because even artists or humans in of themselves are not 100% original. You have to rely. Therefore, they have no right to gatekeep because even their art is a contribution from society. Maybe they were inspired by other art. Maybe they're inspired by their life experiences or other people. Thirdly, moving on to my practical argument. It's about how on our side, on government side, we're able to push out higher quality art, more accessible art, and more enjoyable art for the people at the end of the day. Why is this necessarily true? Firstly, because we are creating inspiration. Because it creates inspiration. For example, Dragon Ball. If he was still alive, then technically, hypothetically, he can just uh, infringe a copyright law or sue the large majority of anime because a large majority of these big animes were inspired by Dragon Ball at the end of the day. Secondly, is in terms of accessibility. For example, people can still watch movies for free, but cinemas still won't be shut down because cinemas are still unique. They get early access, and the cinematic experience overall and in general is still very much enjoyable, which is why people will still want to go to the cinema. Thirdly, because it encourages people to enter art when they feel that they have more freedom, and when they feel that they don't have to follow strict guidelines in terms of art, which is about freedom at the end of the day, which is more likely when they want to become artists, where they want to become music producers, where they want to become actors. But what are the impacts of this? At the end of the day, it provides you as government the mutually exclusive benefit of having better quality art because a lot of people can look at the same thing from different perspectives. And more people are encouraged to enter art and more people are encouraged to enjoy art because these small niches, these small topics that are barely touched on can get a lot more accessibility or can get a lot more recognition because they have a large potential or they have a new gateway for them to keep making art even if it's similar to others. Therefore, panel, if you believe in a world where art can properly be enjoyable and art can properly be pursued in, vote for government side.
All right. Thank you so much for the wonderful speech to open up the clash for side opposition. Let's call on leader of opposition. Here.
Am I audible and visible?
Hello. Yes to both.
Okay, then I'll start my speech. 3, 2, 1. Your artistic creation is like your child. You don't want someone to steal something so precious from you. Thus, I'm so proud to oppose. The first part of the speech is I'm going to be doing some framing and responses to proposition. First of all, they told you that abolishing copyright will lead to more access and more creativity and better art, but they never proved how or why that creativity will then be incentivized in a world where anyone can steal from your ideas and profit from it, meaning that these artistic creators are less likely to create in the first place. Secondly, while it's true that the process of enforcing copyright can be more challenging for independent or less financially secure creators, it's important to note that many legal systems around the world they do provide affordable pathways for small creators to defend their work. Thirdly, the argument that art is never original ignores the purpose of copyright in the first place. Copyright isn't about guaranteeing like complete originality. It's about protecting the creator's contribution. If you take a song, remix it, and like add your own style, the product may no longer be a direct copy. It's a new artistic expression, and that's why artists deserve to control their creations. The notion that art has to be entirely like disconnected from anything before it is completely unrealistic and like contradictory to the very nature of the creative process. Panel, moving on to my argument. So the first argument is, why is it incredibly justified for creators to deserve ownership of their own work? First, like a few reasons why, okay? Firstly, copyright recognizes effort. Writing a book, producing a song, or designing a game isn't a 5-minute job. People pour years, decades into their work, so it only makes sense that they get to decide how it's used. If we take that away, we're basically saying their effort doesn't matter, and that's not fair. Secondly, it's about survival. Most artists aren't rich celebrities. They're freelancers. They're like indie creators, or they're small-time underground musicians trying to make rent. Okay, copyright gives them a steady way to earn through royalties, licensing, and control over sales. You remove that and they're left with nothing. No incentive to keep creating because why bother if anybody can take your work and profit over it? Besides, alternatives exist without full abolition of these copyright laws. Reforming or like updating copyright is better than completely abolishing it. Doing this completely throws out the system when thoughtful like reformation can solve many of its problems where it still preserves its many benefits. Third of all, without copyright, exploitation runs rampant. The proposition side talks about like access and creativity and sharing, but who really benefits in that world? It's not the creators, it's big companies with more resources who can copy, mass produce, and profit, while the original creator gets left behind. That's not fair use. That's theft. That's like stealing your art baby from a cot in the hospital, right? Fourthly, creators deserve to protect the meaning of their work. Copyright isn't about money, it's also about like integrity. Imagine an artist sees their painting being used in a political ad that they completely disagree with. They don't own their creation anymore, and that's a world that we dread. My second substantive is why it helps to sustain artists financially and makes the whole arts industry more sustainable. 3 reasons why. One, it gives individual creators an income stream, right? Royalties, licensing deals, and distribution rights allow creators, especially freelancers and small artists, to earn money from their work. Without these copyright deals, they lose that stream of income, making it incredibly hard to turn their creativity into a full-blown career, which is what many of these artists want. Second of all, it creates a good, stable, and effective foundation for all these people working in the arts industries. Industries like film, publishing, music, and like software, I guess, they depend on copyright to function. It gives the companies the like sort of confidence to invest in new projects because they know that their intellectual property will be protected by these copyright laws. Without that security, the risk may be too high. Somebody can just copy your work and get away with it, and the industry dries up. Um, Thus, so what is the impact of this argument panel? Two impacts to highlight. One, we protect and empower individual creators. Second of all, we preserve an incredibly sustainable creative economy. Thus, I'm incredibly proud to oppose.
All right, thank you so much for that, Leader of Opposition. To continue the case coming from side government, let's call on the Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
Me 30 seconds. Um, thank starting my speech in 3, 2. The whole case coming from side of opposition is trying to say that the ownership, the rights of ownership of these artists exists inherently in our world today. But the mistake coming from opposition is they did not engage at all in our principle, predicting that they are going to bring up this case. Okay, few things in my speech. I'm going to give rebuttals and arguments about how we're going to improve artist success and we are going to create more job opportunity for artists. Number one, they say that cheap alternatives pathway in order to get the copyright laws exists. Look, we say that they did not give any analysis on how this is going to happen. The reason why copyright laws are going to be so expensive is because this is created by governments that are power hungry and they are money and power hungry. What this looks like then is like the rich influencers, the rich artists are the only one that's going to be able to afford ownership laws. But even if poor people are able to afford copyright laws, these laws are not going to be as stringent. For example, if they create a tune or music, if the beat is stolen by a large company, the larger company the case is going to be brought to court. And when the bigger company have better money, they are able to implement better lawyers in order to win the case over and over again. We see this continuously happening, and you see this plagiarism in only companies, and these poor people are going to be stomped on. We say that when the rich gets more power, companies are able to steal anyway. So therefore, we say that we need to make it free for everyone to make it fair. Secondly, they talk about how the ownership is supposed to be there because it's involving your effort. We say in our principal argument that their work owes to everyone in this world. Why? Because imagine like Drake or some prevalent artists in this world, the reason why they were able to create the art that everyone enjoys is because through their lived experiences. Can you prove that everyone in like they interacted in their lived experiences, even consented to anything? And even if you want to imagine that he copied a work of Leonardo da Vinci, just because Leonardo da Vinci doesn't give any copyright laws, he's able to copy out of Leonardo da Vinci. The bottom line here is that work is supposed to be free for everyone because they owed everyone in the process of creating the art. They were inspired by every single thing that they moved through the experience. That is why they shouldn't be able to keep this type of information towards people in our world. Lastly, they talk about how you're going to create more income streams. We say that this is actually worse because you, as a small artist, may accidentally destroy your entire career and reputation.
because you may accidentally copy of other people's work. I've told you how this copyright laws is going to be so strict, they did not disprove that. When it is so strict, when you accidentally copy someone, that's when you are going to completely destroy you financially and you are going to be on the road of desperation and poverty. Lastly, we say that this doesn't really because we are also going like Netflix is have to pay you money in order to show one exact copy of the show. What we are defending is trying to destroy the law that says that you cannot copy certain remnants of other people's work. Please be clear on that. Lastly, it's on how we are able to improve artist success. The reason why it's able, because we are able to give people the credit to artists. Because if we don't give people the credit, they are going to call out in social media. Cancel culture and people that copies of them is going to get backlash. So why is this good? Because when they credit these artists are going to get more popularity. And when they get more popularity, they're going to have more people watching their shows. They're going to get more offers by companies. When they get more popularity, they're going to boost their careers. But also in terms of pirating, we say that when you pirate a movie, you're going to give more popularity to the movies and actually get more revenue. It's one side where we protect the most fundamental right in our world today, side by side of government.
All right. Thank you so much for the Deputy Prime Minister to extend the clash from side opposition. Let's call opposition, Deputy Leader of Opposition. You're here.
Okay. May I know if I'm audible and visible?
Hello. Yes to both.
Okay. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. If we take away copyright, we take away the reasons artists can't afford to create at all. Creativity dies when creators can't survive. Therefore, I'm proud to oppose. Firstly, I'll start by giving responses to prop. Firstly, they state that copyright laws are too strict. However, that is not a reason to abolish them. If the system's flawed, we fix it and not destroy it. They go like, oh, these copyright causes big artists to pay more to get their work copyrighted. Big artists paying more, that's because their work earns more. It makes sense. Copyright isn't just for the rich, it's the reason smart artists can protect their work in the first place. Take it away and it's the rich platform who win, while smaller voices get drowned out. They have also mentioned that art should be free to use. However, this is sadly not the case. Without protection, original creators lose out while copycats cash in. Inspiration doesn't come from stealing, it comes from respecting the work, learning from it, and then creating something new. That's what copyright encourages. Thirdly, they also claim that abolishing copyright leads to higher quality art because of inspiration. And they ignore a key truth that inspiration doesn't require theft. You can be inspired by others without copying their work outright. In fact, when artists are forced to innovate instead of imitate, that's when we get truly diverse and original art. Copying doesn't improve quality, it just recycles what already exists. We would like to clarify that copyright is used such that if one intends to use an artwork that is copyrighted, they would need to approach the original author and seek permission. It's not that we're restricting people from viewing their art or using it, but they need permission. But however, prop over here is just advocating for being able to use the art without permission, which is just disrespectful. Panel, at this point of the debate, we have structurally proven how, firstly, Proposition's case is full of contradictions. They say that copyright is too strict, but they offer no real solutions or policy to replace it, and no analysis on how their work protects artists at all. They just abandon a law that they deem as unfit, and they provide no solutions for as to how, and they provide no solutions for our provider existing problems. Secondly, our arguments are still standing. They have not touched about how copyright protects artists' credit, sustains creators, and drives real innovation. And lastly, we are the only side that secures a future when art is both valued and created. Moving on to the second part of my speech, weighing why we already win. Firstly, as mentioned by my first speaker, without copyright, original creators lose the credit that they deserve. People can copy, profit, and go viral off someone else's work, and the actual artist gets nothing. That's no fairness, that's theft. Second, copyright is what makes the art world financially sustainable. It allows artists to earn a living, build a career, and keep creating. Without it, only those with money or massive platforms can afford to make art. That's not creative future, it's a corporate one. We win because we are the only side protecting for both the people behind the art and the future of art itself. No copyright means no credit, no career, and no creativity. Now, moving on to my new substantives, it encourages creativity and innovation. Let's be real. Creativity thrives when people feel safe to take risks. Three reasons why this is true. Firstly, artists can take creative risks without fear of being exploited. If they know that their work is going to get instantly stolen, what's the point of pouring their heart and soul in it? It also pushes others to innovate as well. Secondly, copyright rewards originality and not replication. That's how we get more unique styles, voices, and cultures represented in the art. If copying is allowed, people will chase what's trendy or already successful. But we need diversity. Lastly, it builds entire creative industries and careers. Abolishing copyright doesn't free creativity, it cheapens it. We will lose vibrant and diverse um, art if we don't allow copyright. When art is protected, creativity grows. When it is up for grabs, it disappears. Therefore, I am proud to oppose. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much for that, Deputy Leader of Opposition. To wrap up the case from side government, let's call on Government Whip. You're here. Hello, calling Government Whip again to wrap up the case for side government.
Alright. Give me. Um, okay. I'll start my speech. In three, two, one. Go. Panel. Copyright laws limits improvement, and without copyright laws, we could definitely improve way much better. And I realized that in the past we have past phones, and if we actually had copyright laws back then, we would never have smartphones because people take inspiration from that old inventions to actually create better and newer inventions. First, good evening to the panel of educators and my worthy opponents on the opposite side. First, let me just rebut. First, in my case, I'll rebut the LO and the DLO on that side. First, the LO said that with theft, there'll be these without copyright laws, there'll be theft, and these people will steal their arts and their songs. But we see these artists have their right and they have their own license to actually show this music and to actually produce this music. So if this happens to the worst case, these artists can easily call them out. But if these artists, since you are prioritizing small creators, even if these artists can't, we have multiple YouTubers in the YouTube industry other remixes and actually shows the comparative of the remixes and the original creators first. And this will mostly be done by big companies and big artists. So because of this, these big corporations have reputation. So of course they will actually credit the original user. If not, they'll be called out and they'll just be gone of their reputation. But even if you don't believe that, these big corporations don't have time to actually do these remixes because they have other big artists in their contract to actually focus on and to actually make original music. Now, on to my rebuttal to that DLO. First, they assume her whole argument is assuming on that if their work gets stolen, they won't be appreciated. Their work won't be appreciated. But please realize that even if people remixes, the people still know it's yours because, like I said before, if these people don't credit her work or his work, they can easily just call out their remixes or artists. Next, next. She said that on their side they'll have better innovation in music, but we have said so many times, if we have better innovation and with more culture and diversity, because we have multiple ways of this music to be done by remixes and by these people expressing their parodies on these musics. If on their side, if they have copyright laws, these artists will be afraid to actually post their remixes or just be afraid to get fines and won't get the accessibility to actually show their appreciation to this music and show their appreciation to this creator. For example, in the MCO period about the PS5 song, without if there were copyright laws and these copyright laws were really strict, there'll never be any parodies on these songs, and her would have popular in the first place. Next, please realize the whole case is also dependent on copyright laws. Please realize that their career, even with copyright laws, even if people copy their music, it will still be shown because they have the license and they have their own right to actually do their career and to actually post their music. Post their music. Next, there is a logical gap that copyright infringement. Please that copyright infringement will ruin their career. They will still get deals. They will still be open to other corporations and to other big companies to get contracts please realize that people do remixes because this song is popular or this song might sound nice, but they just don't have the accessibility and don't have the popularity. So because of this small artist will be easier to get other big companies, big contracts if if they have the if they have um the the popularity from the remixes. And please realize they have never ever responded to a principle where art is an inspiration. For example, Drake, he normally makes music on about his life. So does that mean that he has to pay everyone in his life who actually helped him in his career to actually make these songs and to make these movies and things like that? So please vote for the government side. Please vote for the government side.
All right, thank you so much for the government whip. To wrap up this debate, let's call on opposition whip. Here.
Okay, can I have a bit of time to prepare my notes first?
Yeah, sure. Please don't take too long.
Okay. Right. I will begin my speech on 3, 2, 1. So before going to the issue of today's debate, first of all, I would like to point out the three assumptions that the opposition has made about copyright. So first of all, they have compared copyright laws to limiting innovation, and given the example of if people never improved on the iPhone. However, this is false equivalency. iPhone is not a piece of art. iPhone is a piece of technology, and therefore copyright laws doesn't apply to it. Additionally, there was something called patents back then. So the iPhone still existed within the patent and was limited to not being improved on for a certain amount of time before it was released so that it could be improved on. And we think that this is a really important thing to take note of. So secondly, they have stated that copyright law is 100% rigorous, and smallest bit of inspiration will get an artist punished for their misdeed. However, we feel like this is not true. Artists are only punished if they are directly copying without crediting the original person. Even if the artists credit the original person, this is also counted in copyright law, as if they don't credit, they will be fined. Uh, Thirdly, they've always said that we have never responded to the principle. However, my second speaker and my first speaker has said so many times that we have already responded to their principal, and we feel that they are just not listening to our speech. So on with our clashes. So first of all, protection of we stated that we protect art, while they stated the very weak point that copyright is very rigorous and the big artists will always find the little artists. But we feel that that is not true. So first of all, in real life, there's already so many remixes, and yet the copyright law still exists. You think that if the copyright exists, that then all these remixes will not be here, but that's not true. The remixes still exist. They just credit the original artist, and they won't get punished. This is something very simple and is to be expected of from a person who is remixing a title. Now, our second clash is that they feel that the copyright laws have a 100% ban on any form of inspiration, while we feel that the copyright law can be flexible and improved on. Now, we acknowledge that sometimes the copyright law may not be perfect. However, our main goal is that we only have to prove how this protects the little artists from getting their work stolen, and how copyright law is not 100% rigorous. And I feel that we have already proven so much on it, and that they just did not listen to our speech nor take note of our important points. Now, the last clash is on the topic of affordability. They have stated that only the big artists can afford to pay for copyright laws, and the little artists cannot, and therefore they will always get their work stolen even with the copyright law on. However, the copyright laws are actually very simple and easy to afford. I have done a small market research, and I have found out that the copyright laws only are completely free unless you need it published on a specific site, whereas it will cost to a maximum of $125, which is very cheap for some to protect your own artwork if you are gonna earn a lot from it. Now, since I've proven all of this, in which world do we achieve the benefits of people getting what they deserve? So in our world, I feel that the little artists can get the benefits and the popularity that they deserve whilst keeping their artwork protected. While opposition still feels that copyright laws are 100% rigorous and has not done a full research on it. And therefore, the opposition not only does not make logic, but they're also hypocritic and very shallow within this research topic. Therefore, I'm very proud to oppose. Right, that's the end.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for that. That wraps up this debate. We may now virtually cross the house. Now let me just give me around like 8 or 9 minutes to consolidate my notes, submit my ballots, and also to upload the recording on G Drive, and also to proceed with my call and my justification for this round. So again, congratulations to both teams, and yeah, just give it some time. I'll come back. Thank you so much.
Recording stopped.